Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Trump met with Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping this week in a highly anticipated meeting. Before this meeting, the Chinese Communist Party tried to impose curbs on global rare earth exports, but it let up after the negotiations with Trump. The CCP also published its new five-year plan this month. So what does the future hold for U.S. China relations? Can the Chinese economy survive Trump's reordering of global trade? And who holds more cards in the trade war? Joining us now to unpack all of this is Anders Corr, publisher of the Journal of Political Risk, principal at Corr Analytics, and author of The Concentration of Power. Anders, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of focus on the Trump-Xi meeting. It covered a lot of ground from fentanyl, soybeans to rare earths, according to reports. Now, given these are verbal agreements, no deal has been signed yet. Is it more of a trade truce than a trade deal? How are you reading this?
That's a great characterization. The devil is in the details here. You know, Trump decreased the fentanyl-related tariffs by 10% from 20%. So clearly there's some very hard bargaining here, we'll see what happens as far as whether China actually makes changes to its counter-narcotics enforcement. But I don't think anyone's really holding their breath, and I think that the 10% drop in that particular one is probably a goodwill gesture. I think Trump was really making an effort. I think you see in his relations with Xi that he's really bending over backwards, essentially, to extend the best hand, put the best foot forward, try to be friendly despite all of the problems, which is to his credit. But I didn't see Xi Jinping returning the favor at all, really.
Now, fentanyl, of course, huge issue. Another of the key aspects people were watching for in that Trump-Xi meeting was the issue of rare earths. While China has agreed to delay the recent rare export controls for a year, the ones from April appear to still be in place. Now, those covered 7 of the metals as well as magnets that are critical for automakers and defense companies. What do you make of these verbal trade agreements? Is it back to the status quo before the recent escalations?
I think that's a good approach or thought. It's these rare earth element export controls are really kind of boiling the frog slowly, as it were. It's we're starting to get used to the idea of China imposing export controls on its rare earth elements. It didn't do that in a serious way before. It did it a bit to Japan in 2010 and some other minor stuff, but we really should have been on this decades ago in terms of stockpiling everything that was necessary, getting our own supply chains in order. As soon as we saw them do that against Japan a decade and a half ago, we should have taken more action, but we didn't, and now we're caught flat-footed essentially, and we're a bit over the barrel in these negotiations. So what Trump is doing is really buying time so that we can get our own supply chains going that are independent of China. We are engaging with Japan, Australia, Malaysia, even Cambodia, which is usually thought of in China's court, to ink deals on rare earth elements. The problem is that there's a lot of rare earth out there, ironically, but the refining of the rare earth elements is the key issue, and there's a couple of rare earth elements that are in China and Myanmar only. So we should really be looking to another Trump deal with Myanmar if we can get it. But of course, Myanmar's in a civil war. There was a coup recently. So it's a very dynamic situation, and we're going to see what happens, essentially.
And on that global rollout of China's export controls, we are seeing American allies like Canada leading the charge at the G7 summit to launch a new alliance in a bid to reduce China's rare earth monopoly. In your view, does that signal a growing coalition of freedom-loving countries banding together against authoritarianism?
I think so. The rare earth element export controls from China are a real eye opener for a lot of countries because it's essentially a global law. They're trying to impose their will globally on the entire rare earth element market, and that would obviously have major implications for military industries, defense industries, everything from missile defense, radar, drones, even AI semiconductors. All of these things would be affected by a rare earth element export ban by China. And so they could be pickers and choosers in terms of which defense industries win and lose, which would, of course, be a disaster for Taiwan. It would be a disaster for the United States and Europe in its fight against Russia. So countries aren't going to just roll over and let that happen. But at the same time, it's a very difficult road to hoe because, again, we don't have our supply in order, so we're in trouble. We better get moving.
And switching gears a little bit, you have a piece out on the Chinese Communist Party's new 5-year plan. First, what stood out to you in that?
It's a bit more of the same. I mean, they're picking and choosing which industries are going to be the winners, which ones are going to be subsidized by the state, and those include AI, semiconductors, drones, all of the things that one would expect them to expect to be the next big thing in world technological development. They want to control things in the same. They see what the power is of controlling something like rare earth elements or semiconductors. The U.S. currently, along with Japan and the Netherlands, controls the best semiconductors and semiconductor making machines. So they want to put themselves in that position of essentially being a gatekeeper for a major global technology, and being able to leverage that for immense amounts of power. And that's what they're doing, is subsidizing. But the people who pay the biggest price for that is the Chinese consumer and the Chinese citizen, because they have their purchasing power in terms of what percent of it what percent of that Chinese economy is driven by consumer purchasing is around 50%, and that's a lot less by 10-20% compared to the rest of the world. So unfortunately for the Chinese consumer, the Chinese Communist Party has a lock on them and is able to squeeze them for everything they got in order for the CCP to try to use that economic power, instead of for buying consumer goods for its citizens, use it for their own malign purposes.
Well, Anders, Corr, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.